Hi, welcome to What is This Shift? I'm your host, El Renee, and I'm an LPN for about a decade, and I have been in healthcare for 40 some years. I know a little because I've seen a little. But my main focus is on long-term healthcare, that branch of the healthcare tree, where we deal with long-term care issues in skilled nursing facilities, assisted livings, hospice, home health, anywhere where people need chronic long-term care medical treatment. Quick disclaimer, all the views here and opinions are simply mine and mine alone, do not reflect any past, present, or future employers. That said, technically speaking, my opinion is also the opinion of many other people, so I've made myself kind of a mouthpiece for them, but I'll bring those receipts later. Today, I need to turn my phone off here. Today, if I can, there we go. Today's episode is one of the biggest lies that they are peddling. Who's they? The healthcare system as a whole. About there being a nursing shortage. This is not to be confused with a staffing shortage. What's the difference? Okay. A staffing shortage means that when you walk into the building, there's not enough people on the schedule to do the job. A nursing shortage means there's not enough nurses, period. So the reason we don't have a lot of people in the building to do the job is because those people don't exist. That's the lie that they're trying to sell everybody on, because that simply isn't true. Now, how do I know that? Well, because I know that. Because I also do my research on this podcast. I am not being paid by anybody. I'm not being compensated. I'm not being sponsored. This is literally coming from my heart because I want to be the change I wish to see. I want to advocate because it's all fucked up and wrong. I'm literally the nurse that's in the med room. This is insane. Why are they doing that? This is fucked up. I can't believe that they, the acuity of that person, they don't belong here, blah, blah, blah. And then I walk out and I'm like, hi. Like I'm Miss fucking Rachel. That doesn't mean I'm fake. I'm not trying to, be fake. We have to conceal on the job the reality. However, on this podcast, I don't have to do that. I can keep it real. And that's what I'm doing. So, because I care. I genuinely care. And I'm terrified of the future of healthcare as a whole. I'm not getting any younger. I'm up there in years. But I'm terrified for my grandchildren. Like, if this shit doesn't change, it's bad. Like I've said before many times, healthcare is the Titanic. So I just do this out of the goodness of my heart. I do this because, try to leave things better than you find them. And also, maybe someday this will matter. I don't have any real following. I'm not a TikTok person in the sense of I can't keep cranking out content, putting myself out there. I'm not comfortable in that venue. I can't be consistent with it. You got to make like 2 or 3 videos a day. It's kind of grueling, and I don't think it's the right platform. I believe that these subject matters deserve more respect than a 60-second video that most people are going to be focusing on the messenger and not the message, right? It's an aesthetic platform, it's a visual platform, and it's restraining. You have to literally be on that in order to get this message. Here, you can be driving in your car, you could be folding your laundry at home, you could be jogging down a bike path with ear pods in. You are free to roam about the cabin, if you will, and you can listen to me at your leisure, right? And you're not distracted by what you're seeing. So hopefully the message sinks in more. So that's why this venue is important to me. But because I don't have a whole huge social media following, I would really appreciate it if you did share and let people know about this podcast, because this is for us. This isn't about me. I'm not trying to become an influencer. I'm not trying to become Joe Rogan over here. I literally just want to help us get the message out, because I sometimes I feel helpless, like I don't know what else to do. But I think at least if I have this podcast behind me, I can go to my representatives and say, hey, listen to this. Hey, look at how many other people have interacted. Look at how many other people co-signed this. Like I do have ideas of how we can start getting some stuff changed, but I need help. I can't do this alone. So I invite you to interact. If you know anybody that you think I should interview on this, by all means, please speak out. If you yourself have something to say and would like to be on here, but you don't have a podcast, but you have stuff going on, by all means. And if you know somebody who's kind of a nurse influencer that has a massive following, please also invite them to engage or start their own podcast. Like there's room for everybody, right? Because there's McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's and Steak and Shake. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't have to be like one crusader. We can have many of us, and the more the merrier, because we need our voices to be heard. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox on that, and I'm going to get back to the biggest lie ever told. There's 3.1 to 4.5 million registered nurses. 100,000 of them left during COVID. Those are the ones that left, not passed away. But then another 138,000 excuse me, have left since 2020. Out of those of us that have stayed, nearly 40% of nurses are planning to leave. They're planning their exit. They're either returning back to school to get higher credentials, or they're going back to school to get out of the field entirely. And then 40% of nurses say that they would never choose nursing again. You know what that's giving? That's giving like trying to get out of a bad marriage. Like 40% of nurses are planning their exit. Yeah, I'm just waiting until I have enough money saved to get my own place, and then I'm gonna serve him with divorce papers. And 40% of nurses say that they would never choose nursing again. I wish I had never met him. If I could do it all over again, I would have chosen that other guy. You know what I mean? It's like, that's terrible to say about your career. And we know how grueling nursing school is. I'm going to get to that in a second. And how much money and time and blood, sweat, and tears, and to have to give it up. Listen. Out of all 238,000 nurses have left in the past 5 years. Some statistics cite even higher amounts, higher numbers. Man, that's not a shortage. That's a mass departure from nursing. So since I talk about long-term care, and again, my allergies are ravaging me, and this stupid steroid inhaler I have is giving me chronic laryngitis. I don't have a podcaster voice either. That's why I'm a writer. I want to write books, but nobody reads anymore. It's like a special niche. It's almost like a kink anymore. Anyway, LPNs and LVNs, about 700,000 to 725,000 of us are licensed, and there's about 680,000 of us that are actively employed. So that's a lot of LPNs that are not working at the bedside anymore. And 35 to 40% of us are in nursing homes. That's the vast majority of LPNs are in a SNF. Some of them are in the assisted living, home health, hospice, clinics, hospitals. I even did a stint as a correctional nurse in the county jail. But regardless, most of us are in a skilled nursing facility, aka nursing home. The United States expects 193,000 RN job openings per year. And they like to say there's thousands and thousands of RN job openings, and yet we don't have any bodies to fill them. No. Actually, what's happening is that people keep leaving the same jobs. It's like this revolving door. And so those are the same recycled job openings. They're not new job openings. They are the same ones. Yeah, and that matters. So even though you have LPNs or CNAs become LPNs become RNs, even so, 4.5 million RNs, but 1.8 million of them aren't working anymore as nurses. That's pretty significant, right? Now, the system wants you to believe that 1.8 million were retirees. That, now we have this RN shortage because the baby boomers are retiring. No. It's some of it's retirement. Most of it is turnover. And that baby boomer narrative, like that retirement narrative, has been spun since the early 2000s. Because even those that are eligible to retire are not necessarily leaving, right? They are delaying it. Most of us these days have to delay it because we can't afford to retire. Or maybe they go part-time, or they leave the bedside, they leave hospital-based nursing and they come do a lighter role, like in an assisted living. Or they do a non-clinical role. But this retirement boom that they're talking about, it's not just a sudden mass exodus, right? You don't have like this whole group of 62-year-old nurses just we're all leaving the same day. No. That's expected to peak in the next 5 years. But so what? Because nursing school enrollment has increased, the workforce size has increased, so we have plenty of nurses to replace those that are retiring. But what we don't have are nurses that are willing to tolerate unsafe and often abusive conditions because of burnout and job dissatisfaction and bullying on the job and low pay and violence against nurses and lawsuits and legal fears and fears of killing somebody on the job because of making a fatal error due to being so exhausted, or like being pulled in 10,000 different directions. So I mean there's a few really good reasons that people can't do this anymore, don't want to do this anymore. It's not sustainable. And you know what? The healthcare system knows it's not retirement causing a crisis. They just like to lead with that because it sounds unavoidable, right? If you can't change demographic problems, so that can't be fixed, but working conditions can be. So they don't want to say that nurses are leaving because of the working conditions. So they have to find a lot of other reasons. And retirement is one of the excuses that they give. But when 40% of nurses say that they plan on leaving the profession, regardless of whether they're retiring or not, that's not retirement. That's a system failure. Okay, so let's just recap some of the spin doctoring. They're saying there's not enough nurses. That's false. There's millions of licensed nurses, but many are not willing to work under the current conditions. Okay, they say, 2, the baby boomers are retiring. That's why we have a shortage. Nope, false. Well, mostly. I mean, yes, some nurses are retiring, but a huge number of them are leaving before retirement because they're burnt out or they're done with the system. They say we need more people to go into nursing. I'm going to put my Dwight Schrute face on now and say false. Because hundreds of thousands are applying to nursing school. And tens of thousands of qualified applicants are turned away every year. And they say, well, we're trying to train more nurses. No, false. Programs are capped. Let's dive into that really quick. There's 728,000 applicants to nursing programs yearly. 94,000 of these qualified applicants were denied admission. So there's no shortage of people wanting to become a nurse. And even with this abysmal acceptance rate of 60 to 66%, there's still about 82,000 graduates yearly. Now, while 20 to 30% of nursing school applicants drop out because it is a very grueling curriculum, and people sometimes they aren't really ready, they didn't really I mean, they've been warned, but it's like you don't really believe it till you see it. It's hard. And holding down a full-time job or taking care of kids or family or whatever, like a lot of nurses are like, whoa, this is a lot heavier and intense than I thought. I'm going to have to come back to this. So they drop out. But there's no shortage of people wanting to become a nurse. So, I mean, how are you going to say there's a shortage of nurses while you're turning away thousands of qualified applicants? That seems sort of manufactured. Excuse me. Well, no, it's not necessarily that. It's not really. I mean, so you have all these people who want to become nurses, but then you have a certain amount of them that are capped and thousands are rejected because, well, the number one reason is because there's not enough instructors. You have to have a master's or a PhD to even teach nursing. And as we know, teaching jobs don't pay well. So nurses can make a ton more money doing anything as a nurse but teaching. So then, as a nursing student, it's not just sitting in a lecture, right? You have to have actual real-world hands-on clinical experience in a facility, in a nursing home or in a hospital. And the hospitals and facilities only allow a limited amount of students at a time, and that's due to liability, space constraints, and sometimes, they get paired up with an actual nurse who on the job who will precept. So that creates a staffing burden on an already short-staffed shift. Again, we're not confusing nursing shortage with short staffing. That's a future episode. So if they allowed more students, then they would need more funding, right? Because not only are you doing theory, nursing theory, you're in, lecture, you're doing the book stuff, then you're doing the clinical stuff in the actual facilities, but then you also have a lab at school where you're doing simulations. So you need simulation equipment. I'm talking about like the dummies that you can put Foleys in and you can draw blood on, stuff like that. CPR. You need administration support. You need money for faculty. So the public schools in particular, depending on state funding, so they can't just expand overnight. Like the community colleges here, I think they have, your nursing program starts maybe once or twice a year, and it's a limited amount of seats. It's like 25 seats. So you have 500 applicants and only 25 people are going to make it through. And it's a very competitive process, and you also have to have all these prereqs done first before you can even think to apply. I mean, it's a whole process. And because of all these reasons I'm saying, this is why private nursing schools cost a fortune, because there's typically not a wait list because they have all this money. But the public schools do not. So they can't just expand overnight. So, you can't just start accepting more nursing students and double the entire program if nobody's going to fund that, right? And the schools have to be accredited. You can't just open up a nursing school and say, okay, here you go. I'm going to teach you. I have a master's in nursing. Let's go. You have to meet strict standards from groups like the American Association of College of Nursing, and that requires a specific student to instructor to student ratio, which I find highly ironic, considering they don't give a shit how many residents or patients you have as a nurse, but they suddenly care how many students a teacher has. Okay. But I'm digressing. They require a minimal amount of clinical hours and competency standards. So if the school doesn't follow all that, they risk losing their accreditation. And if a nurse attends a school that isn't accredited and they graduate, and then they go sit for their boards and they try to take the exam to get their nursing license, guess what? They're not eligible to sit and get their license. So they just did all that work, spent all that money, went through all that hell, and they can't even become a nurse. Oh, yeah. So, it's hands-on, resource-heavy schooling. You can't just throw 300 people in a lecture hall and call it a day when it comes to becoming a nurse. So the point is that we're not out of future nurses. We're just out of the capacity to train them and out of a willingness to fix that. Because if there was truly a nursing shortage, then every qualified applicant would be in a classroom right now. Think back to my previous episode where I talked about how LPNs were even formed, like how we were created. We were literally created due to a true shortage of able-bodied people able to do this job. Not, hey, we got a ton of nurses that just don't want to do it. Like, we didn't have any nurses. So they literally created an entire way to train them faster and get them out there. So if there was truly a nursing shortage, don't you think that they would be getting these people? No, there's not. It's bullshit. It's just bullshit. You know, sometimes they will, admit to being short-staffed, although they won't let you do that. You are coached and, prodded, maybe even threatened. Essentially, you are told, don't you dare say to anybody that the reason you couldn't get to that call late in 2 minutes or less is because we're short-staffed. They really frown upon that. Like, you're not allowed to say that. But it's the truth, right? That's why. Because hey, it's me and this other CNA on the hallway. We can't get to you. So they don't want you to say that. But they want the general public to think that. It's really weird. It's really fucking weird. But these facilities often staff at the bare, minimum, because anything safer is expensive. It's too expensive for them. And so, they label that as being overstaffed. Have you ever been sent home because your nurse manager says, I have too many nurses? How does anybody have too many? Never in my life. Excuse me. You could always find a use for that nurse. Trust me. You absolutely could. But they won't, because that eats into their nursing budget. The system likes to say we can't find nurses. No, you can find them. They're there. You just can't keep them. You can't keep them at what you pay them. You can't keep them at the ratios of people. In a nursing home, you got 30-something residents, often many high acuity to one nurse, couple CNAs. No. You can't keep them at these conditions. You say, the nursing system says, well, we need more graduates to fix the shortage. Okay, but we have thousands of new nurse graduating, but they leave within a few years because the conditions are unsustainable. Nursing homes are struggling due to this shortage of nurses being willing to do this job. They're struggling to retain staff because of the workload, because of the pay, and because of the expectations placed on a single nurse. Now, when it comes to the CNAs, there is an actual shortage of them. Like, there literally is an actual shortage of able-bodied CNAs. We're back to like World War II times with RNs. There's a nursing or a CNA shortage because nearly half, like 50% of the CNA workforce is leaving on a regular basis. They provide up to 90% of direct care, and they make up about a third of the nursing home staff. And multiple studies have shown that it all comes down to their very low pay. And let's face it, they can make more or the same amount flipping burgers than they can taking care of ma and pa in the nursing home. What would you rather do? Upsize somebody's fries or wipe their ass? I mean, let's be real. What makes that appealing to anybody? They're not getting paid for what they do, and what they do is the Lord's work. I mean, let's face it. What they do is angelic at best. Truly. They really are earth angels. And I say that even though, yes, there's some bad actors. There's some bad people in every job sector. Healthcare is not immune to that. So I don't want to hear, well, CNAs have an attitude, CNAs this. We're going to talk about all that, because my next episode is how we need to start getting along with each other, and how that has been impeding our ability to come together and make these changes that we need. But until then, understand that CNAs are probably one of the lowest paid. I mean, and to me, a CNA is sort of like a career trajectory. It's not just a job. It's an adventure. But no, seriously, they have an extremely heavy workload. It is physically and emotionally demanding on them every single day. And when I say emotional, it's because they get super attached to these people in ways that nobody else in these nursing homes can, because they are with these people on an intimate basis, right? They're changing these people. They're showering these people. They see these people at their most vulnerable. They're feeding these people. They're dressing these people. And they have the time while they're doing these tasks to actually converse and get to know these people. So they form bonds and relationships with the residents. That's why continuity of care is so vital and critical to the residents' mental health, especially. But they form these relationships so, like, it breaks their heart when something bad happens, or when, people start declining or they die, right? So they have to deal with that emotional baggage. I mean, nurses get affected too, but not, I don't believe, to the degree that the CNAs do. But, they go through all of this, and they have a huge lack of respect and support, not only from the general public and the families and everybody, but from their own brothers and sisters in healthcare, from the nurses, from the managers. Everybody shits on the CNA. And yes, we're going to talk about that in future episodes for sure. But for now, they're not getting any respect. In fact, it's so bad that I've literally seen CNAs putting out falsehoods on the internet to try and gain more respect for what they do. Again, I'll get into that. But people are not exactly lining up to do one of the hardest jobs in healthcare, if not on the planet, for the lowest amount of pay. Like, they don't even make a livable wage. Many of the CNAs I know have to go do agency where they get paid a little bit more, and they are working 2 or 3 jobs. Or they go from working, an 8-hour second shift, like, 3 to 11, and go to a job and stay overnight, 11 to 7 somewhere else on a regular basis, just to be able to afford to live. And then remember last week when I was talking about the CNA who was criminally indicted for using a Hoyer lift that resulted in a resident, fatality? Yeah. So now they're risking actual criminal charges when the system failed that CNA, by the way, in my opinion. Doesn't mean she shouldn't take accountability for doing something that she knew she shouldn't do alone. But she probably wasn't faced with much of a choice on that. So she was set up for failure. To me, there's no mystery why there isn't enough CNAs. The mystery is why anybody expects people to stay and be treated like that and have to endure those type of working conditions. And the system tells us, well, this is a nationwide shortage and we're all trying to solve it. No. This is a retention crisis driven by working conditions and calling it a shortage that hides the reality. The reality being that when you are sitting there waiting for a call light for 20 minutes, they think they can apologetically say, well, it's due to the shortage that's hit nursing everywhere. It's like this everywhere. What can we do? The reality is they don't want to have more staff. And because they don't want to have more staff, because they don't want to pay for more staff, then your current staff is going to leave. It's like a snake eating its tail. A shortage doesn't mean something doesn't exist, because nurses exist, CNAs exist, Nursing students exist. Graduates exist. But what doesn't exist is a system that they're all willing to stay in. So why do they want us to believe that there's this nursing shortage? Well, because if they owned the truth, that means that they are accountable for the staffing models. They're accountable for the shitty pay and the management decisions of like sending people home when really we could use the extra help. So, I get that labor is one of the biggest costs, which means increasing staff is a major expense. But so the fuck what? Like, we don't care about patient safety. We don't care about... That is a whole episode. The staffing. And that's going to be episode... The one after my next episode, which is our relationship with each other. Then we get into that one. Because that's really the meat and potatoes. That's the thorn in the side. That's the Achilles heel that's really driving much of our misery in long-term healthcare. In healthcare in general. But basically, they've sold everybody on this lie that everybody's short-staffed. And so therefore, and they're short-staffed because there's a nursing shortage. And that way, you tell a lie over and over again, it becomes the truth. It no longer sounds like a crisis. And it just sounds like this is just the way it is. This is just the standard, extra residence to a nurse and a CNA. That's just been normalized. And, this burnout that we feel becomes part of the nursing culture. Like I said, that martyrdom, right? And this way it shifts blame away from the system, and it basically victim blames us. Like, well, there's just not enough of you. You all are not doing, people aren't becoming nurses and all of this stuff. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Please understand that there is no shortage. It's a shortage of us wanting to be treated like shit, essentially. And some people might be like, well, what do you mean treated like shit? Like, give me some examples. Oh, I'm going to. We're going to talk about the day in the life of a CNA, and we're going to talk about a day in the life of an LPN. We're going to go there. But for now, trust me when I tell you that it is so bad that nobody wants to do these jobs anymore. And the ones that are looking for a way out. Like somebody in an abusive relationship, but they have to jump ship when it's not going to harm them to do so, right? And I mean, that's anybody looking to change a career field or change a job. Like, the smart thing is to have another job to go into. But when you're trying to get out of an entire career field, it's much more challenging. And if you see what's going on with the job market these days and with life in general, it's kind of not a good time to jump ship. So there's a lot of considerations to that. But thank you for tuning in. I hope that you will, share this podcast and let your friends and family know. If you know anybody who has questions, concerns, or issues with loved ones in a nursing facility, they can chime in as well. I appreciate all of you, and have a blessed day.